On May 7th, 2019, Kenneth Herring was driving his pickup truck in Clayton County, Georgia. Kenneth ran a red light, then struck an 18-wheeler. No one was seriously injured in the accident. 21-year-old Hannah Payne witnessed the accident and stopped to help. An off-duty corrections officer also stopped. He noticed that Kenneth appeared disoriented. After waiting about 20 minutes, Kenneth got back into his truck and drove away. Hannah got into her car and started to follow him and called 911. Hannah cut off Kenneth's truck, then got out of her car and approached him. Kenneth was in his truck when he and Hannah got into a scuffle. Hannah pulled her gun and Kenneth was shot and killed. Hannah claims Kenneth pulled the trigger, but prosecutors say it's murder. Tonight, we are live from the courthouse as the jury makes its decision. Plus, we'll take a close look at the evidence and the video of the shooting. What does it prove? And how does this case compare to other shootings caught on camera where the defendant has claimed self-defense, like Kyle Rittenhouse, the popcorn movie shooting, and the Michael Drejka case? All this as we investigate the shooting of Kenneth Herring.
I'm Vinnie Politan. Great to have you with us tonight here on Closing Arguments. It's a verdict night. We've got a lot to cover, but let's start here. Let's start here. You know, you see an accident, it's actually a nice thing to help, right? You see a car that's there, police aren't there yet. Is someone hurt? Do they need assistance? Can they even call 911? It's okay. It's okay. You could pull over, see if you can be helpful, right? Someone just may just need someone to hold their hand while you wait for emergency workers to show up. But in this case, Hannah Payne is there. She's there for a while. Then one of the drivers takes off. And instead of staying to help the other driver or to give information to police, whatever, being helpful, she thinks it's going to be helpful to chase the car. So she's now following the man who's in this. Now, think about this for just a second, okay? Someone's in an accident and police are on their way and this person flees. What good can come out of it for you if you start to chase them? First of all, like your own safety. If someone is fleeing because police are showing up, there's a possibility that perhaps they could be very dangerous and wanted, and you're putting yourself in harm's way. That's one way to think about it. Now, that's not the way she thought about it, Hannah Payne, because she didn't feel that level of danger because she knew that she had her gun permit and was carrying a gun for her protection. So I guess that made her feel safe. So she chased the driver, the victim. And then when the car stopped, she cuts him off, she gets out, and that's when she pulled the gun. That's another problem here. It's a situation where there is no gun, and she has pulled the gun. And now, what is the end game here? You are no longer being helpful. You are now creating danger for everyone that's around you in the middle of the street. You have no idea why this person is fleeing, and you're pulling a gun. Just why? It makes no sense. But once again, you are not being helpful anymore. This is when it goes from being someone, all right, I want to see if I can help, to someone that is now making things much, much, much worse. And the danger, again, the danger is for herself. The danger, obviously, is for the driver, Kenneth, who gets shot and killed. And the danger is for all the witnesses that are around there. This scene is now out of control. And what happened in that moment was a key part of this case because she testified and talked about it, but the whole thing was caught on video. The shooting was caught on video. So no matter what she says, I mean, they're going to be able to see exactly what happened. And that's what happened in this case. The jury saw the video. And tonight, red tie, the jury reached a verdict. Take a look.
With regard to count 1 as to the offense of malice murder, we, the jury, find the defendant guilty. With regard to count 2 as to the offense of felony murder, we, the jury, find the defendant guilty. With regard to count 3 as to the offense of aggravated assault, we, the jury, find the defendant guilty. With regard to count 4 as the offense of felony murder, we, the jury, find the defendant guilty. With regard to count 5 as the offense of false imprisonment, we, the jury, find the defendant guilty. With regard to count 6 as to the offense of possession of firearm during commission of a felony, we, the jury, find the defendant guilty. With regard to count 7 as to the offense of possession of firearm during commission of a felony, we, the jury, find the defendant guilty. With regard to count 8 as to the offense of possession of firearm during commission of a felony, we, the jury, find the defendant guilty. Respectfully submitted, the 12th day of December, 2023.
She put herself there. It was her actions that put herself there. It's not like she's like walking down the street, something happens. No. She put herself in that position. And I think there's a crucial factor in all of this. All right, let's bring in Court TV legal correspondent Hannah Payne, who is live from the courthouse in Clayton County, Georgia, where all this happened just moments ago. Hannah, great to see you tonight. Take us inside the courtroom for that moment where this young woman, who was, I guess, 21 at the time of the shooting, a little bit older now, is now looking at the rest of her life behind bars.
Yeah, you could see that written all over her body language when she heard the first guilty, the second guilty, and it rippled throughout her family sitting behind her, her family who's been here every day of this process with her. She's been out on bond, so she's been able to arrive and leave with her family members each and every day, except for tonight when she was convicted of all 8 counts, Vinnie, and you could hear her sobs in the gallery. And Kenneth Herring's family, they've sat on the side behind prosecutors the entire time, and you could tell this is really what they've been waiting 4.5 years to hear. In fact, we were even able to catch up with the sister who testified, Kenneth Herring's sister, and this is what she had to say.
It's been long and arduous. It was hard on my family. It's been almost 5 years. I had to come for every court appearance. I was here to hear her incessant wailing as if she had been shot. And after 5 years, I believe the case was presented as it happened. The state did its job, and the jurors did their job.
And of course, inside the courtroom, the defense attorney, Matt Tucker, had caught up with him just moments before in deliberations, and he was confident that he was going to hear not guilty on those counts. But this jury decided differently. And it wasn't until he asked for the jury to be polled when each one stood in the box, because all 14 came back inside the courtroom, but I knew only 12 actually made the decision, and I was able to see who the final 12 were. And this is what they appeared to be. We've been watching them for days as they take in the evidence. There were 12, of course, that stood and said, yes, this was their verdict. 8 men, 4 women, 11 appeared to be African-American, 1 appeared to be Caucasian. And this was a jury, Vinnie, that was so unique because they would rarely take a lot of notes, but you could tell that they were intently listening the entire time. After all of this was done, the DA of Clayton County did speak to the media. Let's see what she had to say.
we look at the facts, and we go with what the facts, the evidence led us. It was hard to. It's easy to say race. You know, it's real easy because you have a black victim and a white perpetrator. But that's too easy. We had to go down into the depth of the evidence and really dig it out. And it didn't seem like race played a part in it. And we didn't want to trivialize Mr. Herring's death. You know, this was just somebody that was out of control, that had the audacity to think that she could make someone do something that wasn't within her power.
Tasha Mosley there, returning to the prosecution theme from day one, the audacity of this then 21-year-old. I do want to mention a couple of final things outside the courthouse. The jury left as a group. They declined my request for any sort of interview to talk to them about how they reached this verdict, and quickly. Also, the family of Hannah Payne did not speak to the media, but I did try to speak with them as they left the courthouse. They were very somber. Hannah's mother was escorted by two family members, Vinnie. It was like she almost needed help walking and almost standing up to the car, which was parked pretty close to the front of the entrance. And then once the car door closed and she was in the car, Vinnie, she started screaming so loud I could hear her from several yards away.
You know, as we watch it from here, you're there at the courthouse. These folks have lived what has transpired through the years, the family waiting for justice, and then the family of Hannah Payne seeing what justice in the case was, the truth, which was revealed by this jury. To me, I wasn't surprised that it was a quick deliberation. What was the defense closing argument here? What garnered that sense of confidence and then that reaction from the family and from Hannah Payne? Yeah. I mean, there's a video of the whole thing.
There is, and that's probably, it is the most important piece of evidence. I know that we can't show the full video to our viewers because it does show the shooting, but I've seen the video several times, and this is a jury that requested that video, and I'm sure they were able to watch it, pause it in certain moments. Does it align with the story that we heard Hannah say yesterday? You know, I've seen it. You can see it, the unedited, and you can see exactly what happened. It's a little grainy on maybe whose hands on the gun, but that had to be pivotal to this jury's decision. And it did surprise me, the confidence I bet I was seeing from the defense attorney, because like you, Vinnie, we've been in so many courtrooms, and you can tell when a jury is in tune with a particular side, right? So it did surprise me that he seemed confident. Maybe it was just him telling me that he was. I don't know. But he did spend about an hour trying to appeal to this jury. And he was telling them and arguing to them that this is a young woman, 21 years old, that she had good intentions, that she just got caught up in a bad situation, but what she intended to do was to try to prevent another accident. Let's take a moment and watch some of his closing.
She's 21 years old, never been in a situation like that. In her mind, she's a young individual trying to help out. She hasn't seen the bad sides. Heard the old phrase, no good deed goes unpunished.
And of course, he also pointed to the fact that there was male DNA on the top slide of that gun, Vinnie, in which would, in his estimation, be plausible. And he was hoping to create some reasonable doubt that indeed what happened matched her story, that Kenneth Herring had grabbed the top of the gun and could have actually been the one that fired the weapon.
Yeah, I see this in all these shooting cases, right? Sometimes it's just the gun went off. Or I didn't pull the trigger. We hear Alec Baldwin has been saying that over and over again. But jurors are allowed to use their common sense. And in this case, common sense plus the video and the entire circumstances that lead up to the point that she is there. Now, this was interesting. The state waived their first closing argument and then just wanted to go last. That's the way we used to do it in New Jersey. That was the rule. Defense goes first and the prosecution. There's no sandwich. It's just each side gets one take at the whole thing. So what was their real theme here, their successful theme in convincing this jury?
The audacity theme, which is what the prosecutor returned to when she began her closing argument earlier. And I have to say, the waiving of the initial close was a smart strategy here, because they in addition to having a succinct closing argument, had the PowerPoint visual, Vinnie, which afternoon, after lunch, it recaptivated the jurors' attention. And now some that seemed a little weary listening to the defense had their attention zoomed in on the screen. The video was replayed. There were photos of the crime scene. The law was outlined in a way that made sense and easy to understand. So it was definitely a strength for the prosecution to go that route. And they, of course, returned to the fact that but for Hannah Payne, which they said was the only aggressor that day, but for her bringing and introducing that firearm into the situation, Kenneth Herring would still be alive. Let's watch.
You don't get the death penalty for committing a traffic infraction. 62-year-old Kenneth Herring, who was unarmed and minding his own business, was chased down, detained, shot, and murdered by this defendant. And the audacity to come here and take that stand and blame everybody else.
And now Hannah Payne, Vinnie, will have sentencing this Friday at 10 a.m. We expect victim impact statements as well as the judge to decide, is it life with or without parole?
And that's actually a huge deal in this case because of her age. You know, many times if you have a murderer who's going to be 50 or 60 years old, it doesn't matter. You're done. You're going to die behind bars either way. She's so young that it does make a difference, but she's not getting the 5 years of credit, right? She's been out on bond?
That wasn't mentioned. I wouldn't imagine she's been out on bond, so we'll see.
Yeah, we shall see.
What the judge considers. And it is a pretty quick sentencing, considering a lot of times we have to wait for a pre-sentencing investigation and whatnot, but it's happening Friday.
Yeah, and maybe more of an explanation of her background and why she would put herself in this situation. And again, I started the show saying, you know, there's a car accident, you want to help, right? But it ceases to be helpful, and it continues to be dangerous. And it can be dangerous in many different ways. In this case, it was dangerous for the victim. Mm-hmm. And she lives, but now her life is done in any meaningful way of what her expectations were for the rest of her life. You know, it's extremely tragic and so preventable. I think that's, when you say the audacity, I think that's where a lot of that comes from, right? The audacity to take the law into your own hands. It never works. It never works either way, for you or the person you're chasing down. It's just not going to work. So the jury, it was just an hour and a half, right? This was a quick deliberation for a trial that lasted like a week.
Exactly. And so, Vinnie, the judge actually called the jury in at one point, or asked them, do they want to go home for the evening and start again tomorrow? And they said, no, we're going to keep working. And as you know, that's pretty much an indication that they're almost there, that we're going to have a verdict pretty quickly. And based on their reactions to really from day one of testimony to closing arguments, it does not surprise me, being in the courtroom every day, that this was the outcome and that it happened so quickly.
I think there's going to have to be extreme remorse at that sentencing. I think people are going to have to speak up on her behalf, but the victim impact statements are going to be equally powerful in that moment. Chanley Painter in Clayton County tonight in Georgia. It's verdict night. Chanley, thank you so much.
Thanks, Vinnie.
All right, folks, we've got a lot more analysis to go through, breaking down the video of the shooting and then putting some context on this verdict, because we've covered other cases here at Court TV where there have been videos of shootings and an allegation of self-defense, and we've had mixed results. What makes the difference in these cases? We'll break that down, plus coming up next hour.
In Tallahassee, Florida, the murder for hire of law professor and father Dan Markell. Today, the sentencing of former dentist and murder mastermind Charlie Adelson.
The Adelson family, in particular Charlie Adelson, has been a major cause of our heartbreak and the murder of our son Danny and the loss of our 2 grandsons.
We are moving closer to trial in the case against doomsday prophet Chad Daybell.
Prosecutors say they will seek the death penalty against him.
Investigators have recovered human remains at Chad Daybell's residence.
There's no way, Morgan. I should never come up with this.
His wife, Lori Vallow Daybell, has already been convicted.
Now, will her husband end up with the same fate?
It's just so hard to know where the truth ends.
It's the doomsday prophet, Chad Daybell, on trial.
I was here to hear her incessant wailing as if she had been shot. I think it's selfish to blame the victim when you're the aggressor.
Kenneth Herring's sister, after the verdict was handed down by the jury, finding Hannah Payne guilty on every count, including malice murder, felony murder, aggravated assault, you name it, she's guilty. Sentencing will be on Friday. But what I want to do is bring in our guests, because we're going to put some context and perspective on everything that happened here tonight. In Chicago, Illinois, criminal defense attorney, host of the Defense Diaries, Bob Motta is with us. In Atlanta, Georgia, criminal defense attorney Josh Schiffer, and also in Atlanta, family law attorney, law professor Randy Kessler. Great to see everyone tonight. Thank you for being here on this verdict night. I want to start because there was a video of the shooting here. Now, I can show it up to the point of the shooting, and then you'll see some of the aftermath. But I want you to watch it, and then we're going to listen to Hannah Payne's description of what happened. And then we're going to talk about whether or not what she described is what we see in the actual video. Let's take a look at the video first. All right, before we comment on that, let's take a listen to Hannah Payne's direct examination describing for the jury, from her perspective, what we just saw.
How did he have your wrist? Like this?
This hand was here, yes.
Okay. And the gun was here, he's pulling you forward.
Yes.
And you said he had you here on this?
He was closer.
All right. So, and he had your shoulder with this hand, or what was this hand doing?
That he let go.
He let go.
Once he got a hold of this wrist.
So he came.
And he grabbed the gun.
All right, you tried to grab the gun like this?
Correct.
Okay. And where was your finger?
The same way that I have it now.
And when he grabbed like this, that shows his fingers are right there over the trigger?
Correct.
Is that a correct?
I mean, yes. But
so it's possible any of the 4 digits got into that trigger?
Correct.
And then what happened?
As he's turning it towards, like that way, I'm being pulled, and I can feel myself like pressing up against the car, like my face is up against the door. And as he's pulling it is when the gun went off. After it went off, my entire body kind of fell backwards, like I was almost like I was falling over, and I was trying to catch my balance.
And here's the video one more time. That's the moment right there.
Oh my God.
That's the moment where the gun goes off. Right where we freeze it, that's where the gun is fired. All right, let's bring back in our guest. Bob Motta, your thoughts about her description and what the jury got to see and what they requested to see again inside the jury room.
It doesn't seem to fit exactly, you know, and the thing is, Vinnie, as you know, when I'm preparing a client for trial, I mean, we have that video. You know, we've gone through it probably 1,000 times trying to make the story fit, you know, but the one thing about video evidence is you can't change it. It is what it is. And, you know, just this struggle that she described, which ultimately leads to the weapon discharging, at least in her estimation, you just never really saw it the way that she described it, you know. And at the end of the day, you know, really what you said with respect to, you know, she put herself in that situation. You know, the 911 dispatcher's telling her, do not approach the vehicle. You know what I mean? Do not approach the vehicle. And she did it anyway. She got out of the car. She blocked the guy's car. She 100% put herself in that situation. And this is what happened. You know, I mean, she's not a cop. She shouldn't have been doing that. You know, get the plate. Give the plate to the dispatcher. Let the police do their work. And, you know, unfortunately, we have a victim who's lost his life.
I don't hear anything.
Yeah, Josh Schiffer.
Yeah. It's tough stuff, man. This video is so challenging. And then when she decided to testify, something that I generally support for my clients, a lot more than a lot of other lawyers, what ends up happening is she lacks consistency with what the jury can see. She lacked consistency with some of the written reports and some of the summaries. She was impeached with some of her prior statements. And just like Bob said, this was a case where she brought the gun to the situation, a situation that for most people, there's no need for an ultra-hazardous instrumentality. And I think it's very difficult for a jury to get beyond that. I also really question why there wasn't a biomechanical or biophysiological mechanics expert brought in if they were going to rely on this trigger pull by the decedent, because you could at least explore that issue much deeper if you're going to try to find some reasonable doubt.
All right, Randy, does the video match her testimony from your perspective?
You know, not precisely, right? A reenactment is never as good as a video, right? Years ago, we didn't have videos, so we're used to, us old lawyers, we're used to reenacting or explaining. But, you know, the problem is the jury saw it. It was really the lawyer testifying. The lawyer was holding her hand. The lawyer was trying to lead her, and he wasn't there, and he didn't do it perfectly, and, you know, that creates problems. If she's going to testify, if she's going to reenact, she has to build in some sympathy, and she has to be remorseful. She has to be talking about, oh, my God, it was a blur, it was a fog, but no, I don't think it matched up. And if you're going to do that, it's okay if you're going to get the jury to see that you were confused, you're upset, you're remorseful. I don't think she accomplished that.
Well, yeah, I'm not trying to get someone to get off on charges, right? I just want the truth, and I'm trying to figure out if what she's saying matched up, and I don't think any of us think that it's matching up. And so what she's testifying to isn't truth. The video is what it is. It is what it is. Speaking of videos, so she's found guilty today. I've got another one for you, okay? Where a young man, she's a young woman, young man has a gun. And this young man was found not guilty. Big trial here on Court TV. Kyle Rittenhouse is his name. This first shooting victim is Joseph Rosenbaum. Let's take a look at that video, because we had a video of that. The jury saw that as well. Let's take a look. There you can see Kyle Rittenhouse afterwards. Now, there was a second shooting. There were two other people that got shot. We've got some still photos of those. He's being kicked in this one. He gets hit by one of the shooting victims with a skateboard. And then the third shooting victim has a handgun. Okay, so what do you see here, Bob? What's different with Kyle Rittenhouse versus Hannah Payne?
The socio-political thing that was going on at that time. You know, I mean, it's like the two situations are so diametric opposite of each other. I mean, at that point, we're in the middle of George Floyd riots everywhere. And, you know, I mean, he's up in a county in Wisconsin that, you know, when he's engaged in basically the same activity, because when that case was going on, I'm like, this kid is telling his mom that he's going up there to go out into the streets to get involved with this. And like, there, under no circumstances am I letting my 17-year-old kid do that.
I get that, but the video is not the same, is it? Is the video the same? I mean, the video I just saw, Kyle Rittenhouse was being chased. Kyle Rittenhouse was being assaulted with a skateboard, and someone else was had a handgun. So that's way different than this trial, isn't it?
Way different. Yeah.
Josh,
you know,
I just want to get around before we run out of time here. Josh,
there's differences and there's similarities, because remember, you start at the shooting and you work back to each action, and you've got to see how the shooting, how the physicality of the trigger pull is connected to the immediate preceding action. In both of these cases, you've got a shooting that is in response to a momentary bit of aggression. In the Payne case, you've got her approaching with a gun, having the gun presented in an aggressive manner. He grabs the gun, and that's when the trigger is pulled by her. And she brought that firearm to that instant moment. Similar in the Rittenhouse case, the decedents brought violence in the immediacy before the shooting to Kyle Rittenhouse, and that's why he walked.
Before we get to Randy, Bob, we do have time. I miscalculated. Go ahead, pal.
Yeah, you know, it's just like Josh said. I mean, there are similarities, but there's a lot of differences. You know, and in a case like this, you can't pretend like what was going on in our country wasn't existing in terms of that. That was a highly political case. So there was just a lot of differences. But when you're just stripping it down to the law, I mean, there was enough there, at least in the estimation of the jury, for them to find him not guilty, you know, and it's exactly to what Josh was saying, you know, because of that visible aggression by the decedents, in their estimation, that was enough for him to have done what he had done. So, you know, and we couldn't see that in the Payne video, you know, like we just didn't see, I never actually see the decedent in that case, you know, you can't really see him there. You know, so it's like, it's just a different vibe altogether for the jury. They're just not seeing that. And whereas with Rittenhouse, at least they could see that the kid's on the ground, some guy's swinging a skateboard at his head, you know, another guy's chasing him with a gun. You know, I mean, at least you can see where the jury's coming from with respect to, all right, this is a situation that was just completely out of hand. It was complete chaos. Whereas with Payne, she created the entire situation by trying to play cop and make a citizen's arrest or whatever she's doing.
Randy.
So there are
Josh, I got to give Randy some time, Josh. Can I go to Randy, Josh? Can I go to him? Let me get permission first from Josh. Can I go to Randy?
Please, Josh.
Go ahead.
Josh? All right, thank you. So the similarities are they both initiated, right? These are not people that were backed into a corner and someone came into their house and it was self-defense because they didn't have anything else to do. They both took out weapons and approached a situation, right? So that is a similarity. You're right, Vinnie. You know, the biggest difference, though, and we can talk about geopolitical and where we are, but the biggest difference may be the jurors, right? They had a different jury pool. It's not like an objective criterion that one machine looked at one set of facts and one machine looked at another. There were people in a different community, in a different environment, and they looked at them differently. And I think there was enough evidence in both cases to find both defendants guilty. And I think there was enough doubt in both that if you wanted to, you could find them both not guilty. You know, it depends on the way it was presented. It depends on the jurors. And it depends on the way the lawyers made the jurors feel about their clients.
Go ahead, Josh.
Yeah, no, what Randy just said is perfect, because I could see this case being tried differently with different results in different communities nearby. We have over 150 counties. Clayton County is a very specific place, and you can't remove the geopolitical issues. I'm really proud that Tasha Mosley's office didn't make the case about race, but you can't remove that from the manner, method, and site of where this case occurred and the community the jurors come from.
All right, we've got our experts with us. We've got more to dig into. We're going to talk about a couple of other shootings that were caught on camera to put some perspective on today's big verdict. Remember the popcorn movie shooting in a theater? And how about Michael Drejka, who was like the handicap parking spot monitor at a convenience store? That's next.
I've worked hard all my life. I've gone from being a local reporter to becoming a law student to then even going on to teach other lawyers, all before I came to Court TV. As a journalist, lawyer, and teacher, I learned the secret to success is speaking in your authentic voice. And I bring that lesson to my show, Opening Statements, every morning on Court TV.
Opening Statements with Julie Grant. Weekday mornings at 8, 7 Central. Only on Court TV.
State of Florida versus Michael Drejka, case number 1809851CF, as to the charge of manslaughter. We, the jury, find as follows as to the defendant in this case. The defendant is guilty of manslaughter as charged.
Michael Drejka, that was the case you saw here on Court TV, convicted of manslaughter in a case where Marquise McLaughlin was shot and killed. It happened at a convenience store. Apparently, Marquise's girlfriend had parked in a handicap spot, was confronted by Michael Drejka. Marquise then walks out of the store. He's got one child in the car, another child with him, and then there's a confrontation. Let's bring back in our guests. Bob Motta, Josh Schiffer, Randy Kessler still with us. So again, tonight we're taking a look at some of these other shootings that have been caught on video, and the defendants have alleged some level of self-defense. We're doing that because of the Hannah Payne case, where her shooting was on video for the jury to see, and the jury just convicted her tonight. So let's take a look back at the video that helped convict Michael Drejka. Here you can see he's talking to Marquise's girlfriend. Marquise comes over, pushes him away. He falls down to the ground, and then as Marquise steps back, he pulls out a gun, and that's the moment that he shoots and kills Marquise as Marquise is retreating. Watch it one more time. Marquise concerned because someone is confronting and yelling at his girlfriend, who's in the car with his daughter. He pushes her. He initiates the physical confrontation, and then you'll see Drejka pull out the gun as Marquise is stepping backwards. Takes at least 2 steps backwards before he is shot and killed. Bob Motta, Josh Schiffer, Randy Kessler with us. All right, Josh, this is someone who was convicted. Your thoughts on what you see in this video, again, in light of what we experienced tonight with Hannah Payne being convicted?
I think just like in the Payne case, the state did a good job getting granular with this video, making the jury slow it down and actually look at what's happening, putting the logic together in their head. I'll note also in that Drejka video, there's no sound, and sound changes how we interpret things. But as you just pointed out, very clearly the decedent is backing up. There is a plenty of opportunity to not fire, to de-escalate, to protect one's self. And I think that's what the state really focused on. These videos are so hard because we can't control them, state or defense, when they go back into that jury room. And I've talked to juries. I've dealt with lots of cases with videos. It's kind of common with juries today. Videos are everywhere, and the juries love them. They slow them down, speed them up, and they make all kinds of conclusions based off of them.
And I'll tell you what, they're much more accurate than testimony. I'm just saying. Randy, your thoughts watching the Drejka video? We know what the result is. He was found guilty of manslaughter.
It makes me think of all the police training, right? Police are taught to de-escalate. Police are in situations like this where they have a weapon and they're in a confrontation and they don't shoot unless they absolutely have to. That's what they're supposed to do, right? And there are always exceptions. Human beings that are not police officers act differently. This is why if you're going to have a gun, you better be trained. You better figure out when you need to use it, and it's only to defend your life, or you're going to end up convicted of murder. Perfect example.
It's those 3 steps backwards, right? 3 steps backwards, Bob. I think that makes the difference here. If he continued towards Michael Drejka, it may have been a different verdict.
That's everything. Those 3-step backwards are clearly retreating. You know, I mean, he had achieved what he needed to achieve with that weapon as soon as he started taking those steps back, and that's all he had to do was get up and walk away from the situation. He made the wrong choice. You know, I mean, those 3 steps are everything in that scene right there, all of it.
And if he wanted to use the gun to, all right, control Marquise McLaughlin for a moment so he could get out of there, I think he would have been all right. I don't think there would have been any charges, but he pulled the trigger as Marquise is going backwards. Another one with a not guilty verdict was Curtis Reeves. This was the popcorn movie shooting. It's very grainy video, but let's take a look at it. And you can see this part that is spotlighted. Curtis Reeves is sitting behind the victim, and you're going to see, there he is. He's sitting in the chair, and there's some chatter back and forth. And there, right there, the popcorn comes flying in, and out goes the gun. As soon as that popcorn came in, the one hand, you saw it come in, then the gun of Curtis Reeves came out. Curtis Reeves found not guilty in that situation. Randy, your thoughts comparing this to Hannah Payne, right? Hannah Payne is saying that in that case, Kenneth Herring had reached for her gun. I mean, is there much of a difference here?
I don't know how you describe the difference. I mean, the immediacy, you know, maybe people can, you know, be more sensitive, more sympathetic because they've been in a situation like that and they're PO'd at somebody who would do something like that in a movie theater. I don't get it. It is not much different. The bottom line is deadly force for someone who was a hit and run or deadly force for someone who threw popcorn. Neither one makes sense. And I don't know why one was guilty, one wasn't. But, yeah, it just goes to show you want to err on the side of caution every time because you may end up in jail for the rest of your life for reacting or overreacting.
Bob, how do you see the guilty versus not guilty? So reaches with some popcorn and throws the popcorn, gets shot and killed. That's not guilty. Reaches for the gun that's been drawn and is guilty.
I can't explain it. You know, that's the old axiom that there's one absolute truth in the law, and that's that you never know what a jury's going to do. You know, I mean, you can't look at those two things and come up with like a real rational explanation. I mean, this is closer to the woman who threw the burrito bowl at Chipotle at the worker's face.
Right.
And the judge sentenced her to, you know, having to work at Chipotle for 2 months, which I don't know if the judge can actually do that. But, you know, I mean, like to shoot and kill somebody and walk on it for that situation, I'm having a tough time figuring it out.
Go ahead, Josh.
I'm dying, man. I hated that Reeves verdict. I thought it was terrible because if I remember correctly, defendant Reeves had an extensive law enforcement background. And it was not like this case. It was much more of he just pulled out a gun and shot. There was talking. There was some jabber-jawing. I felt that in the Reeves case that I watched, he was more culpable than the jury found him. But again, you're going back to the community that the jury is pulled from, and that matters a lot with the socio-political and the economic issues that are always in the background. Plus, in the Reeves case, you've got the age. There was a lot of discussion about a feeble old grandfather, where I don't think he was particularly feeble. I think that he could hike through the woods and hunt and fish and do all that other good stuff. But I really didn't like that as a representative case, and I don't think that it applies to Payne.
So what I'm hearing, a little bit of a theme here to kind of put a bow on our discussion tonight is that the jury pool matters, like immensely in these cases where we know who shot who and we see what happens, but how they interpret it. To me, though, that's not necessarily a criticism of it, because isn't our system set up that you commit a crime or you get tried for a crime in the jurisdiction with the jurors from that jurisdiction? So if you're going to do something, you better know where you are before you do it, Josh.
Remember what Chanley was saying earlier, where she talked about being in there and she could feel that they were all tuned into each other. My mentor, Jerry Spence, talks about the resonant C, where if you've got two pianos facing each other and hit the C on one, the C on the other will vibrate and make a sound. The jury is key. You win or lose your case based on how that jury selection goes. Any lawyer that tells you otherwise is nuts. Good juries will forget the law, change facts, and rule because that's the conclusion they want. And they will find a way to support whatever they want as long as there's a permission and framework from the court to do so.
All right.